Oh, so this week we enter our last week in the building blocks message, and the building blocks message started 5 weeks ago now, and it started with David. It started with David the shepherd, David the forgotten son, David that, hey, we have one more son, and he's watching the sheep. Oh, go get him. He must be the one we're waiting for. Like, you checked off all the sons that you thought were worthy, and then you got to oh yeah, we have one more. And then the week after that, we looked at David the shepherd, who went to David the harp player, right? And then David the harp player, who went to David the cheese and bread delivery to the front lines of the battlefield, David. And then last week we went to David, who showed up to deliver cheese and bread and decided he was going to fight a giant. And then this week the battle a little bit, right? Last week we talked about how it is facing our own giants in our own lives, and how if we let them get close to us, they can kill us. You know, if we let that sword get so close to us, our giants will kill us. And we all talked about the different giants in our own lives, and I asked you to write down the giant that taunts you, the giant that tells you that God's not good, the giant that tells you that there's no living God, the giant that tells you that, oh, it's just one more time, the giant that says one more drink or one more hit, or those giants, the giants that impact our daily lives, the giants that are on the screens. Those are the giants we talked about. And how we need to keep our distance, just like David did. Because if David went after Goliath and wanted to meet Goliath head on, he would have lost. Because Goliath had a sword. But David, knowing that he had the Lord with him, stayed back with a flat stone and a slingshot. Trusting in the Lord, just like he had when he was a shepherd and a harp player for a crazy king and delivering cheese and bread. Doesn't sound like much of a warrior. Watching the sheep, playing the harp, delivering cheese and bread. Doesn't sound like what the world calls a warrior to us, does it? But he had an advantage. He had an advantage that no one else understood at that moment. He had an advantage that he saw and understood how God saw him. He had an advantage that he believed that God could do all things. And he had an advantage that was God's plan and purpose for his life, and he brought him here. He gave him the strength and the tools he needed to win that battle. And he does it to each and every one of you. I think every single one of us is a David. That God started the story over here as a shepherd, and I know not many of you were shepherds, or maybe a harp player for a crazy king, but, you know, fill in the blanks. You might not do those things, but maybe you work for a crazy boss right now. And you're forced to do things that you're like, why me? Why do I got to play the harp for this guy? You know, and maybe you feel like all you do is deliver food. But through all those steps, God was preparing David, just like he's preparing you. He's taking you through different seasons of life, and he's preparing you to do what he intended you to be, and intended you to do. It's hard to think of that about our own selves, but think about the person that bothers you the most in the world, and think that God has that plan for them too. You know, we think, oh, okay, you know, God does want what's best for us. Now think of your biggest enemy in this world and think that God has a plan for them too. God created them to do something too. God created them to be David too. To go through these seasons, but created for a purpose and a mission from God. Write down the first thing and said, God, let me see blank the way you see blank. Write someone's name in there. Make that your prayer. God, let me see Derek the way you see Derek. You fill in the blank. Nothing you do. You're not my biggest enemy. That's a whole other attitude, isn't it? To think that God wants what's best for us is one thing, but to think God wants what's best for your biggest enemy is a whole other thing. To think that God created that person for a mission and a plan, and God's working in their life. See, you just don't see them the way God sees them. You see them the way you want to see them. You see them the way everybody saw David when he showed up. And he said, I'll go fight the giant. I'll fight Goliath. And everybody went, who are you? Who are you? Just drop off your snacks and hit the road. And then David said, no, I'm here in the name of the Lord. And that giant cursed my Lord. That giant is making mockery out of my Lord. And I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. At that moment, I don't think David thought this, but at that moment, David was becoming what God intended him to be. That moment, David was finally fitting into those shoes that God had made for him. See, we need to stop surviving. We need to get out of this mindset that we just need to do the little things to get past today. We need to do the little things to stop surviving, right? A lot of our mentality is, hey, if I can just get past this, how many posts do I see? I can't wait for 5 o'clock on Friday. If he can just get me past these next 4 hours. You'll have to forgive me, I am battling a little bit of a cold. And I just got over strep throat earlier in the week, so my throat is feeling a little raw this Sunday. So, but how many of us are going to say, okay, I'm going to stop getting by and conquer what God intended me to conquer? I'm going to stop satisfying for, well, this is just me, to being who God intended me to be. Stop settling for just sitting down and saying, well, it's just the way it is. No, it's not. It's the way you want it to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. See, God intended you to be so much more. God didn't intend David to end up being a shepherd. God didn't intend David to end up being a harp player in the end all. It was just a season. It was just a part of his life. David faced opposition every step of it, didn't he? Especially when he showed up, saying, I'm here to fight the giant. All the things he done, all the things he had done, all the people that he had pleased, and not one of them thought, hey, he's done a good job. I think he's the right guy for it. Opposition doesn't prevent the presence of God. It provides an opportunity to prove the presence of God. When you're opposed, it doesn't mean that God's not there. It's an opportunity for you to show that God's there. Just like David did. I don't think you were intended just to survive. I think you were intended for so much more. I think each and every one of you. I don't care what your story is. You weren't intended just to survive. You were intended for so much more. So much more. It really bothers me when I feel like people are taking their salvation and settling for it. Jesus did not come to this world to settle. He came to this world to overcome. He came to this world to die for you. Not so you settle for it. So that you live for it. So that you share it. So that you go out and you tell everybody what he's done. He didn't intend for you to settle. Like, oh, I'm so glad I met Jesus. I'm so glad I accepted Jesus. All right, now I can be done. No, your life's just starting. Your life's just starting. We're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 17 right now, and we're going to continue to read through the story. And it says, David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel whom you defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give you the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or by spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you all of you into our hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching out into his bag and taking a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. Just picture this for a second. You have the Philistines over here, you have their army lined up, you have Goliath stepping out, you have the Israelite army over here, and you have the shepherd, the harp player, stepping out, coming to the battle line. That giant is defying and mocking God, saying, "This is who you bring me? This is who you want to fight me? Are you stupid? Why would you ever do this? There's no God big enough to win the battle with him at your lead." Just think about what Goliath must have been thinking. "Oh, hey, just another day on the job. They'll be running away in a second." Right? He's got the sword. He's got the javelin. And here's David showing up maybe with a little pouch with some stones in it, a little slingshot. And I'm going to tell you right now, the slingshot's powerful. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have crabapple fights. Right? We all used to have slingshots, and we used to get those crab apples, put them in our pocket, and we would hide and for a half hour on time until that person walked by us, and we were like, ting! And it was all fun and games until someone got one in the forehead. The true story, still got a mark to show you. We no longer could play with the crab apples and the slingshots. And I did not know the story of David and Goliath growing up. I didn't know when that happened, but when I read it, I had to smile. David pulls back that slingshot and let it go. Goliath falls. What do you think the Philistine army must have been thinking? What do you think went through their mind when their giant just fell and the shepherd and the harp player is coming to get him? Takes out the own giant sword and off with his head. That army, as the scriptures continues, ran. There was a different giant. David ran and stood over him. He took off the Philistine sword and drew it from the scabbard. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw their hero was dead, they turned and ran. See, there was a new giant in town. All 5 foot tall of them. Scary enough to run off an army. See, when we give God the glory, and when we use the strength that only God can provide, we can chase away our giants too. We can chase away the army of Satan that says, "I'm going to attack you, I'm going to put this in your life, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough." You can chase it all away. And the scriptures continue to say just how far they ran, and it wasn't like 10 feet. They took off, and the Israelite army chase them to the next city where they continue to run. I mean, it was like being afraid of a lawnmower and someone chasing you on a lawnmower, all right? They were running. They were running. It's like that dog that you thought was going to bite you, and you kept running. You kept running. See, David continued to make choices. All through his life, he made choices to serve the Lord, to trust the Lord, except for a few times where he fell off the wagon. All right? Made some bad decisions. That same passion and that same strength, if you're not used for the Lord's will, can get you in a whole heap of trouble, and David showed that too. But all the decisions he made created his current circumstances. And they do to you too. Your life, every single minute, is faced with decisions. You make decisions, and they create your circumstances. If we don't like the circumstances we are in, then change your decisions. If you don't like where you are right now, change where you are right now. That famous quote that you hear all up until about you're 5 years old, till about you're out of the house. There are consequences for your actions. Right? I think at about 14, it starts going in one ear and out the other. But from like 5 to 13, you got pretty good traction with it. There are consequences for your actions. But why? Why do we not believe that? As adults, why do we not believe that? Why do we go on in our sinful ways, doing things that we know is wrong, and expect there to be no consequences? And then when there's consequences, we show up and we're like, what happened? Well, how did this happen? I don't understand. How did this happen? I don't like our current circumstance. You did it! You made the decisions. You made the choices, just like David did. He made decisions and choices to do what God intended him to do, and then he made some decisions that God did not intend him to do. Created his current circumstances, and he lived with it. When it was really good, and he was doing the things that God intended him to do, in the path that God had for him, it was awesome. He was slaying giants and leading armies. A man after God's own heart. But when he used that same passion and strength that God instilled in him to do sinful things, it was awful. It was awful. See, we're all like David. We are. You can look at the story of David, and we're all there. We all struggle. We all have those passions and gifts that God's instilled in us. If not used for the right things, they can create some very bad situations. Let's use it for God's purpose. Let's use it for God's path for our life. If you jump ahead 4 chapters in 1 Samuel, the story of David continues a little bit. And he's searching for a weapon, and he asks the priest, and he says, don't you have a spear or a sword for me? I haven't brought my sword or any other weapon because the king's business was urgent. The priest replied, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, is here. It is wrapped in a cloth. Wait, so you're telling me the same sword that Goliath held in that battle, the same sword that was intended to kill David, the same sword that was supposed to end David's life, is now David's weapon. David said, there's none like it. Give it to me. There's none like it. Give it to me. See what you're going through? The things right now that are intended to hurt you, intended to kill you, intended to get under your skin, is God preparing you for that next chapter, for that next phase. See, what was intended to kill David, he used 4 chapters later. And I think the same thing happens to our lives. The patience that we're being taught right now, We're going to use 4 chapters from now. Might even be tomorrow. That joy that you're being taught right now, you're going to need it. Just a couple chapters. Open your eyes to what God's teaching you right now, the tools that He's giving you right now. Because in just a couple chapters, you might need it. The tools that He taught him as a shepherd, that prepared him to be the best harp player for the crazy king, that prepared him to be able to deliver sandwiches, that prepared him to be able to kill a giant, that prepared him to have a weapon when he needed one. Let God work in your life. Embrace what He's teaching you. And trust that there's a plan. Pray. Father, let us rest in your plan. Father, let us learn so much from the story of David that we too can choose to kill our giants. If we put our trust and faith in you. Those giants that torment us, that say we're not good enough. Lord, we can get rid of those with your strength. Let us have it, please. Fill us with your strength. Fill us with your understanding. Lord, let us embrace where we are, knowing that we're there for a reason. Let us rest knowing that you're going to take us out of it. Father, we love you. Let us rest in your plan.